Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk on the opening Sedra in the book of Bemidbar. And the Shabbos that we read this is the Shabbos before Shavuos, as happens most years that we read this Sedra. We begin the book of Bemidbar the week of Shavuos, and many parallels are found, many appropriate reasons why this is a perfect fit, even though it doesn't actually contain references to Matan Torah. We read about the giving of the Torah in the portion of Yisro in the book of Shemos, but this desert location, this desert encampment, is definitely tied very, very strongly to the idea of the receiving of the Torah, and so many philosophical reasons are given, practical reasons as well, that we need to make ourselves humble and empty so that we are vessels ready to receive the Torah. We cleanse ourselves of our ego. We get rid of the rubbish that's inside us, and then we are going to be able to receive the Torah as and really get the benefit of all of the divine wisdom of the Torah by making ourselves like a desert, as it were, at this point. And we have an absence of distractions, absence of physical distractions. And it has also been asked, why, for example, was the Torah not given on Har HaMoriah, on Mount Moriah, in Yerushalayim, at the point of the Beis Hamikdash? And there is this idea that the Torah that we receive on Har Sinai, we receive it every year. This Torah is universal, and although we have 613 mitzvot that bind us, tie us, and we, as the Bnei Yisrael, as the children of Israel, receive this Torah, yet there are universal concepts, and it is not tied to any one place in its broader sense. And although we are on a journey towards the land of Israel in the Torah and throughout our history, where the Torah itself is above all time, above all place, and this is the symbol of the midbar, of the wilderness. And I think there are even more specific connections and messages that we can learn from this week's Sedra that make it so incredibly appropriate to read as we go into the week of Shavuos. And the elements that I want to talk about are firstly this idea that it's called Chumash HaPekudim, which is often mistranslated as the Book of Numbers, although we call it Bemidbar because that's the first non general word that is used. The Sedra opens Vayadaber Hashem el Moshe Bemidbar Sinai. So this is the first word that it doesn't commonly appear in many other places, and we call it Bemidbar. Yet the rabbis call it Chumash HaPekudim because of the census, two censuses, the censai, then in the plural of census, that were taken in this book. The first in the Sedra of Bemidbar that we read now, and then the second in the Sedra of Pinchas. And so because of these two, which they are normally translated as countings of the people, we call it the Book of the Countings. But the word Pekudim, Chumash HaPekudim, which is how it is described in Hebrew, does not mean counting. Counting really is a English approximation, I would say. It's looking at the fact that these two censuses were taken, but the word Pekudim really means arrangements, appointments, connections, and structure and organization. It is a very, very, very broad word that is used in the Hebrew sense in many different contexts. And so to reduce it to this idea of counting is to ignore all these other nuances. because what we see in this Sedra of Bemidbar, which is really so exceptional when you think that these were newly freed slaves, people who had recently come out of the land of Egypt. They were on a journey to the land of Israel. This was supposed to happen before the Sedra of Shalach Lecha, before the Meraglim, the tourists who go to the land of Israel and bring back a negative report about the land of Israel. This was supposed to be a very short journey to the land of Israel, and considering that as well, the arrangements that were made in the Sedra of the precise location of every tribe and the organization of the Bnei Israel, newly liberated, yet they are not just a hodgepodge of humanity. They are going to be structured and organized. So first of all, we have this idea of the count of the numbers that were actually involved, and then we have the idea of the encampment and the organization of this number of people into very specific structure. And how does this fit in with being appropriate to think about and read before we receive the Torah? So I'm going to start by thinking about the flag, the concept of the flag, because we're told that each tribe had its flag, each tribe had its color, and there was a color on the flag, the background color, and over on top of that was an emblem. Each tribe had its own color and its own emblem. So on the one hand, we are trying to be a unified nation, and this is something that links very directly with Matan Torah, because at the time of receiving the Torah tells us that the people were unified, ke'ish echad belev echad. They were like one person with one heart. And this unity is essential to being fitting receptacles for the Torah. We need to have the unity. This is absolutely crucial. Yet on the other hand, we seem to be encouraging these tribal affiliations, tribal divisions, and we're just going to look at the structure of this actually. So there is this diagram in the Gutnick Chumash, and if you see here, we've got the details of the encampment, and we have in the center the Oren HaKodesh. This is the Mishkan rather, and the Oren HaKodesh. And then we have the camp of Yehuda over here, on the right-hand side of the Mishkan, and that consists of the tribes of Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zevulun. And then along the bottom of the Mishkan, we have the camp of Reuven. We have Gad, Shimon, and Reuven, these three over here. And then on the left hand of the Mishkan, we have the camp of Ephraim, Binyamin, Manasseh, and Ephraim. And along the top, we have the camp of Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. And then on the top of the Mishkan, we have Merari's descendants. These were the children of Levi. And then at the bottom, we have Kahas's descendants. And then on the left of the Mishkan, we have Gershon's descendants, and on the right we have Moshe and Aaron's sons. So this is the very clear structure that the people were organized. Again, I keep going on about it because this is something that is so exceptional, that in the desert they are given this structure, remembering that slaves were used to getting orders from masters, not used to independent thinking. And here they have to follow this. They need to be able to have the structure. That might not be something that they are capable of independently at this point, but they are able to know their place around the Mishkan. They are able, with this degel, with this flag, they are able to they are able to know where they belong. This is a feeling of great security, and they are going to be able to navigate. They're going to be able to have this journey through the Midbar. And this is a real combination, on the one hand, of the divisions of the encampment, but they don't threaten the unity. And the question is, how is that achieved? Because if we have these tribal loyalties, tribal affiliations, and we know that later on in history, in the book of Shoftim, sometimes there were disputes and wars between the tribes. So this is something that really can undermine unity. And I think that there are two ways that we can see how the unity was preserved. And the idea is that although the flags of each tribe had the name of the tribe, they also had one of the letters of the names of each of the fathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And in addition to that, the emblems of each of the four groups. So although there are 12 tribes, they were organized into four groups, and these groups and the emblems were the group of Yehuda had the emblem of the lion, the group of Reuven had the emblem of a person, the group of Dan had the emblem of a vulture, and the group of Ephraim had the emblem of the ox. And each of these four emblems they featured in the vision that Yechezkel had, the prophet Ezekiel had, of the Kisei HaKovod, the throne of Hashem. And so we can see in the fact that the flag, on the one hand, definitely represented the individual tribe, and we sing it in Shabbos Semiris, in the special song that we sing on Friday night, and we talk about Ish al Machnehu ve'ish al Diglo, which means each man according to his encampment and each man according to his flag. And we also that is not at the expense of the unity of the whole. And so this is the unity that is symbolized by the fact that you have to look at the flags together to see the full name of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, because each flag is going to have one of those letters. And then you also look at the emblems on the flag and have to realize that these four emblems are the emblems that appear around the divine throne. And again, each one by itself is not sufficient. We need all four of them to work together and be part of Hashem's throne, literally be part of Hashem's throne. And I think that although the messages of the Midbar, the messages of the desert, being an appropriate moment for the awesome event of Har Sinai, of Mount Sinai, of receiving the Torah, that is absolutely true. But I think that we can find in these special ideas behind the arrangement of the tribes that we read about in this week's Sedra, and we can see how the structure is something that was so vital for the people at this point in their lives, and they needed the affiliations of smaller family groups. Yet on the other hand, they also needed to know that they were part of a whole. And the way that the encampment was structured achieved this in a way that only Hashem at this point could organize and structure the people and impart this really important message. And the concept of the flag, I think, is also really fascinating when we look at contemporary history and the month of Iyar, and we've mentioned before that the month of Iyar has miraculous days in it that are connected to the modern states of Israel, the return of Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael, that can only be described as a miracle. This is something that is against all the odds, against nature, in terms of the events that happened to the Jewish people during the past 100 years. And we see that there is the emerging of a flag of a Magen David that becomes a flag of Am Yisrael Chai in our time. And I think that this is also a way to connect with the flags of the Midbar and to look at the one of the ideas of the structure of the Magen David is its two triangles, and one of the triangles has its point upwards and the other triangle has its point pointing downwards, the sort of the point of the triangle as opposed to the base. And really this is a symbol of combining of Shemayim, of spirituality, and earth, and the physical aspect of our lives, of being a nation in our country, and how we have to navigate the challenges and incorporate the Torah into the land of Israel and our lives in the land of Israel. But thinking about the flag, thinking about the fact that Friday, which is the 28th of Iyar, is Yom Yerushalayim. This is the day that Yerushalayim was liberated in 1967, and the Jewish people had access to the Kotel. This is something that was just a dream for so many thousands of years. And we witnessed this open miracle happening against all the odds, like so much of our history, if not all of our history, is against all human odds. It's part of Hashem's plan. And so when we think about the contemporary relevance of the concept of the flag, of how the flag, which sometimes can become divisive, which can pit one national group against another national group, the flags in the Midbar, the flag of the Magen David, of the flag of Israel, all of these are flags, are ways of conveying a message that we need our individuality, but we are part of a whole, and we flourish when we are united, and united, most important, as we move towards Shavuot, united, most important, in accepting the Torah. And with all of these themes, this is so much that we can learn from this week's Sedra of Bemidbar and the contemporary events that we have been privileged to see in our time. Thank you very much for listening, and wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom.